A very good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. My name is Chris Gandhi.
And I'm Marvelous Mhlanga this Friday, August the 27th, 2021, broadcasting from my home in Washington, D.C. due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, like my colleague Marvelous has just said, we would like to inform our listeners that because of the coronavirus pandemic, tonight on Live Talk, we are not able to give you our usual show since we are broadcasting from our homes.
And the live talk goes out to Zimbabwe on the 909 medium wave frequency and on the 4930 and the 15460 kilohertz shortwave Monday through Friday at 8 p.m.
And on the internet, you can go to www.voazimbabwe.com or www.voashona.com and www.voaindebele.com.
And thanks again for joining us. You're listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. This evening, we are talking about the reopening of schools on Monday and the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues.
Yes, the announcement by the government this week that pupils are writing examinations, those who are writing examinations will open schools on Monday, while those who are not will start school on the 6th of next month, has riled some parents.
The announcement came as a surprise to some parents because a day earlier, the government had announced that the COVID-19 lockdown had been extended by another 2 weeks.
What has further frustrated some parents is that students will be required to pay for their fees, including the time that they were not going to school.
But first, let's give you an update on the COVID situation in the country.
As at 26 August 2021, that's yesterday, Zimbabwe had 123,986 confirmed cases, including 110,183 recoveries and 4,356 deaths. To date, a total of 2,453,529 people have been vaccinated against COVID-19.
And Zimbabwe needs to vaccinate 10 million people for it to reach herd immunity. But in its latest situation report, the Minister of Health says 18 deaths were reported due to COVID-19 yesterday. And also 275 people tested positive for the COVID-19 virus yesterday.
Yebo, Marvelous Zulukandaba, siyadibana kuhlelo lwethu lwe-Live Talk. Lamhlanje ke siphethe indaba ezichiyachiyeneyo. Siyaqala ke njengensukwini ngokukhangela ke inombolo zama COVID-19 le coronavirus. Ugatsha lwezempilakahle luthi lona kulabantu abalichumi lasitshiya galombili 18 ababhubhileyo izolo bebulawa ke yi-COVID-19. Leyo nombolo ke ikhanya hayi itshengisa ukuthi kungani kusiba nganeno kuyehla kunsokana ezedluleyo sike sabona kufika abantu abafika bona 100 bebulawa ke yi-COVID-19. Kuthi ke izolo ke kule 275 abantu ababanjwe igciwane le coronavirus okuthiwa ke i-positive ngesilungu. Sizakhangela njengokutsho kwethu udaba lokuvulwa kwezikolo, siphathe njalo lezinye indaba ezichiyachiyeneyo. Marvelous. Marvelous.
Yes, kune avo vachangobva kupinda muchirongwa chedu aiwa tinokuchingamidzai nemufaro nhasi nemusi wechishanu August 27, 2021. Ini ndiri Marvelous Mhlanga uye ndiri kutekenyura ndiri kumba pamusoro pedenda rechirwere cheCovid-19. Nhasi semusi wechishanu kudai tiri kutarisa zvakasiyana-siyana. Change tiri kutarisa isu pamusoro pedenda rechirwere cheCovid-19 icho chanetsa pasi rose. Totarisa zvakare pamusoro penyaya yekuvhurwa kwezvikoro uko kwakatarisirwa kunge kuri kuitwa nemuvhuro uno. Asi vazhinji vari kushora kuti kosei zvakanyanyozotaurwa mushure mekunge hurumende yazivisa iyo kuti yakange iri kuwedzera lockdown kwemavhiki maviri. Saka ndo zvimwe zvatichange tiri kukurukura pamusoro pezvazvo, tichitarisa zvakare mamiriro akaita nyaya yedenda reCOVID-19 munyika. Tichaedza zvakare kutaura negweta riri kumirira vakamborwa hondo yorusununguko, vapfumbamwe vatakaona vachisungwa nezuro asi vakazoregeredzwa mambakwedza wanhasi vachinzi ivo vakange vaenda kumahofisi egurukota rezvemari vachienda kuti vanoratidza kusafara kwavo pamusoro penyaya yekuti vari kuhoreswa ivo mari yavo yemudyandigere yavanoti 16,000 rtgs, mari yavanoti haina uremu sezvo vari kuti ivo pari zvino kugara munyika kuri kuti dhurei. Saka totarira kuti bazi rezveutano rinozivisa kuti kubva muna March gore rapfuura pane vanhu 123,000 vachidaudzira vakawanikwa ivo vachibatwa nedenda iri reCOVID-19, uyezve vanosvika 110,000 nekudaudzira vakawanikwa vachibatwa nedenda iri vachiri kunda. Tozotarisa vakashaya kubva kudenda iri pari zvino vakamira vari pa4,356. Totarira vawanikwa ivo vachibayiwa nhomba yeCOVID-19 vaakudaudzira 2.4 miliyoni pari zvino. Asi bazi rezveutano rinozivisa kuti panodiwa kuti nyika ibaye vanhu 10 miliyoni kuitira kuti pawanikwe iya inonzi herd immunity, kuitira kuti denda iri risarambe richitekeshera kana kuti vanhu vasarambe vachitapuridzana denda irori. Saka ndo zvimwe zvatichange tiri kukurukura nazvo muzuva ranhasi semusi wechishanu kudai pano paLiveTalk yatiri kukupakurirai tiri kuno kuWashington, uyezve tichipakura tiri kumba. Chris.
Yes, marvelous. Thank you so much. We have our first guest here, Mr. Begilizwe Ndlovu. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kande.
Yes, you are in South Africa. Maybe can you give us an update of what the situation is like concerning COVID-19?
Well, the situation is under control generally, but issues of whether to vaccinate or not vaccinate, they continue to dominate, South Africa with some people. You see, even on social media, people joking about these things, to say the world has been divided now into two groups of people: those who are vaccinated and wish that those who are not vaccinated and are waiting for those who are not vaccinated to be vaccinated, and those who are not vaccinated waiting for those who are vaccinated to die. So that's the situation in South Africa. But lockdown is not that tight anymore. So people have gone on to live their lives. The controls that are there, I think there is cohabiting now. People are happy that they have learned to live with it to a large extent. Although there are still, serious infections happening, and the numbers out. Someone was talking to me a few minutes ago to say about 12,000 new cases in the last 24 hours.
Okay, so in terms of deaths, are you hearing anything? How many people are dying and so forth?
I may not know the actual number, but here and there you do hear of people still dying of COVID. Yes, I don't have the actual numbers though.
Okay. No, I was talking about during the height of the pandemic, we had some people were saying that on a daily basis you hear of someone who has died, that kind of thing. Is it still the same?
No, the numbers have decreased. There was a time when it got bad. Even in family WhatsApp groups, you whenever anyone knocked to talk, you became afraid, because it was bad news after bad news. So, but now it's rare to hear of such deaths. It's more of natural deaths, and then rarely any COVID deaths.
Okay. Yeah. Now let's look at another topic, and the topic is schools reopening in Zimbabwe. We had last week, uh, actually, it's this week when it was announced that the the lockdown is going to be extended by 2 weeks. But the following day, we heard that the schools are reopening on Monday. What do you make of that?
Well, Zimbabwe is such a difficult environment, especially in terms of decision making. There's been poor decision making. There's been poor decisions that have been made that were tainted by the politics of the country. So I'm still trying to read the politics behind the decision to open schools when it does seem that things are still not that good in terms of COVID-19 in Zimbabwe. I'm yet to establish in my mind why when you have decided that you are going to extend by 2 weeks, you let school children then go to school. What does that do? Because the interaction of school children at school could actually just spiral the numbers, because a child goes to school, interacts with the other children coming from other families. So if you have decided that it's 2 weeks lockdown, why would you say children should go to school? There's some politics behind that. If we watch closely, we will see the politics.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, when we look at the general situation of education, where COVID seems to have disrupted everything, what do you make of the future of education, especially in Zimbabwe, where we know, not accessibility to the internet is limited, especially in the rural areas where the majority of people live? What do you make of the future of education as a result of COVID?
I think it can still be rescued if there is positivity. Look, I'm not young. When the war of liberation happened in Zimbabwe, I was living in the rural areas. Schools were closed for about 2 years. So they were actually closed in '78, and we were, just kids, not going to school, doing a lot of mischief. Come 1980, schools were closed. We started afresh. Some of us had to catch up, and so with positivity and serious leadership, this can be rescued. I think there is no need to worry that much. What's important is, after the dust has settled, for leadership to begin to think seriously about ways of rescuing education and putting the country back on track in terms of school. You remember how thorough the interventions were in 1980 when we went back to school, and even guys who had gone to war. I remember we went to school with elderly people who had gone to war, but then decided to go back to school. And here we are today, having gone to school after such a serious problem. And I believe the same can be done around the COVID. After the dust has settled, we can go back to normal and even do better. Use it as a springboard to do better than what we were doing before COVID came. Because in any case, the Zimbabwean education was going down in terms of quality, with teachers leaving and going to other countries for greener pastures, as it were. So there's need to relook it and bring it back to what it used to be.
Hmm. Yeah, but when we look at the quality of education, especially now with new technology, do you think that the country needs to invest more in new technology in order to keep up with the rest of the world, especially when it comes to distance learning?
Of course, it does. Certainly, yes. We cannot, continue to be locked outside the world, because that's what it does. Again, I will emphasize the fact that with limited resources, I want to say yes. I mean, technology is important, but that positive attitude of, even as we lack, we can still, work our way up around the rough terrain that we find ourselves in. So that's the hope that I would speak to the ordinary Zimbabwean who finds himself in a situation where leadership is not that good and they lack certain resources that are important, like technology, they should think, even as it is, that they can rescue their own path and be able to find themselves in a better place in future. But yes, very important that if resources allow, there should be an extension in terms of technology. It should go to the rural areas. The kids should use technology in the rural areas.
Yeah, very interesting, because you talked about how education rebounded after 2 years, when during the liberation struggle, and at that time we didn't have the internet, social media, and so forth, but we managed to get back on track. So I think it's still possible, even though we are having these problems. What do you think?
Definitely, I totally agree with you that it's possible. There should be that general positive attitude towards rebuilding. If people could rebuild after such a situation, the liberation war, this time is even easier because technology is there. I think that I can teach my child. I can teach if the technology at home. I can teach a nephew or a niece from here, from South Africa, through Zoom. Take them through a maths or geography lesson and assist. This globalization fortune that we have sort of makes it easier for this COVID disturbance compared to the war disturbance that we had in the past.
Okay, marvelous.
Aiwapo tiri kunzwa munyarikani vedu vari kutaura ivo kuti semaonero avo vari kuti takaona kuti mushure mekunge paita hondo yerusununguko, nyaya yedzidzo takaona ichizodzoka zvakare, uyezve tikaona isu vamwe vakanga vatokura vachiuya vachipinda muzvikoro mushure mekunge hondo yerusununguko yapera. Saka hondo yecovid iyi kana ikapera, zvakakosha kuti pawanikwe pachipiwa zvikwanisiro nyanya kumamisha, kuitira kuti tekinoloji iwanikwe iyo ichishandiswa mukurandudzira nyaya iyoyi yedzidzo munyika. Saka vari kuti aiwa, chinodiwa kuti vanhu vakwanise kunge vachiitira kubatira pamwe panyaya yekuti nyaya iyoyi yedzidzo ienderere mberi.
Yes, thank you, marvelous. We have a video which was done, which was sent to us by Ezra Chisas Banda. Mnumzana Ndlovu asizime kancane sibukele ivideo esithunyelwe koBulawayo ukuthi bathini ngendaba yona le esikhuluma ngayo emfundo. Just a second, just hold on.
Manasangwe. Yebo ngwenye ungaphi lapha koBulawayo?
Lapha ngihlala eMbundane.
Embundane. Nansi isikolo kuthiwa sivulwe. Uthini wena ulabantwana umzali?
Umzali ndabantwana.
Bafunda. Bafunda nga.
Omunye ufunda usebhodini.
Usebhodini. Akutsho ke kuthiwa sivulwe izikolo. Umntwana lo uyebhodini. Ebengafundi isikhathi songeleza.
Ngisenza ama-services but kana akukho.
Okuzibhadalela wena wethu.
Ngibhadalela mina yethu. Lawo online besenzisa online.
Akusitshele ke ukuthini ngalokho ukuthi izikolo zivulwe.
Ngathi ngibona ukuthi babaphambanisa ikamini lapha ikhama abadala ukuthi izikolo zivule nge-2 days izikolo sezivule. Ngaphithi lockdown, ngaphithi izikolo zivule. Phambanisa kakhulu.
So lapha ukusho ukuthi vele ama-message amaningi abuyayo. Ngoba kwathiwa sokule lockdown ingeze nge-2 weeks ngapha zothiwa abantu bafunda.
After 2 days ukuthi izikolo zivule.
Abantwana bazahamba njani?
Abantwana bahamba nje ukuthi uzathevela abantwana besikolo only.
Ngawufuna ukuhambisa umntana wakho hayi kumele angene ebhasini.
Angene ebhasini
Esikolo. So ubona ngani abantwana ngabe kukuhle ukuthi babhalele ama-examination?
Mina imbona ukuthi bebhale vele babhalani babafundeni. Olo nto bayibhala ukuthi angathi abaphinde.
Ufisa ukuthi ngabe
kuyaphinde.
So uzathini wena njengomzali? Njengoba ngizothatha lokho elibizelwe ama-school fees, even abantu behlala abantwana behleli ekhaya.
I-school fees sesabhadala kudala, sesabhadala phansi isikolo mezivula kuthiwa lockdown. sesabhadala
kodwa le i-term kuyathiwa libhadale futhi
amboni ukuthi ungathi sibhadale futhi
ngizokuthi umele libhadale
hayi akungaliwa lapha i-13 bese akuyenzi
uthi libhadale lingabafundanga
akuyenzi hayi akuyenzi igovernment
so wena ngingathi u-advise uhulumende ungamtshela enzeni
ukuthi abantwana o-grade 7 labo form 4 bephinde
labo form 6
labo form 6
nosufisele inhlanhla siyabonga
alright sir.
They are the sentiments of one parent. He is saying that pupils who are doing grade 7 should repeat. What do you think of that?
Well, it might be a good observation. I'm not on the ground, but I think it might be a good observation. I'll tell you my personal story. When the schools were closed, moved to town, there was no place for grade 1. I went to grade 2. But when we went back home, I went back to grade 1. So that was some kind of repetition, because when the schools were closed, I was doing grade 1. So I would listen to that person. I can't make a judgment because I don't have enough information in terms of how much they have lost. If the sense is that they've lost too much based on the observations of those who are on the ground, yes, that decision should be made for the kids to lose a year, but they gain enough knowledge. We are known internationally, and especially in Africa, as a country that runs a good education system and produces serious graduates in the process. And that should be remembered and corrected and reinstated by a country that wants to improve. So I wouldn't argue with that person. I would take that as data that has got to be processed for decisions to be made in future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting news coming from the ground. But
yes, Chris, maybe if I can just bring in, we've just got our guest from Zimbabwe and their lines are very bad, but let's just welcome her to the program and just quickly give her a chance to introduce herself and to tell us what she thinks is the way forward regarding the opening of schools. Go ahead. Hello?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Revolution Jovo. I'm the
Tell us your view about the opening of schools.
my view in terms of schools opening, I think it's very immature to say we have to open schools now when they, for example, we are just seeing many handbooks to open schools, and the day before, it was on Tuesday, we were told that level 4 lockdown has been extended for 2 weeks, and then now the next day schools are opening on the 30th. So I think it's premature in terms of the teachers, the parents, and even the learners also. We cannot be, it's just like a command opening of school. You should go to school now. So I think it's premature to say the school should open on the 30th of August.
So what are you going to do?
I'm saying,
What's happening now? What are you going to do as the rural teachers?
it's impossible for us to travel back to schools. Why? Because first and foremost, we are incapacitated. We do not have money. The salaries that we are getting, they are below the poverty that I'm lying. Actually, we got paid last week, but now we don't have anything to show that we were paid, because we paid around the 25 RTGS to around some getting even less than 10,000 because of too many things. And we have to actually, with that RTGS, we have to go out there in the black market and buy foreign currency that we are supposed to use to travel to schools, because there is no, we won't get any transport that charges in RTGS or swipe or eco cash. We have to have hard cash and we buy that cash. Imagine. Secondly, we are teachers, we are parents. We have our children, I have to go to school. I have to go to my things, I have to leave this student, or I have to take my child to a boarding school. The money is not enough. Thirdly, the schools as a whole are not yet prepared for the opening. There was no income that has been coming to school for the past 3 months. Schools did not buy any PPE. The government is saying they So I think the opening of school is just not it.
Regai timbotaura nemi nerurimi rweshona kuti muri kuona sei sevarairidzi vekumamisha nyaya iri kutaurwa nehurumende kuti zvikoro zvivhurwe nemusi wemuvhuro.
Okay, apa zvandiri kuona kuti zvikoro zvivhurwe nemusi wemuvhuro ichinhu chisingatomboiti zvachose. Zvikoro zvingavhurwa but dambudziko riripo nderekuti kunogona kuchaikwa maticha zvikoro zvacho. Why? Because maticha haana mari yekuti adzokere kuzvikoro. Especially varaidzidzi vanodzidziswa kumamisha uku havana kana mari. Tiri kutotaura nemwe munhu atori pamusari ezvino achidzidziswa kubhinga. Anotoda mari inosvika $60 kuti anosvika kuchikoro kwake. Haana mari. $60 iyo anofanirwa kuitenga nemari yepamusoro-soro kuti aiwane. Ari kuda chikafu, ari kuda zvinhu zvakawanda, ari kuda hembe, saka hazvisi kubuda. COVID zvatiri kutaura vamwe kune vamwe vakabayiwa, kune vamwe vasina kubayiwa. Saka tiri kuziva kuti ipapa kuchaitika chii. Handisi kuti vanhu vabayiwe, handisi kuti vanhu vasabayiwa, asi kuti zvichafambiswa sei ipapa. Tiri kutaura panyaya yekuti gavhimenti hurumende iri kutaura kuti zvikoro zviri prepared. Vatiri kutaura zvino kune zvimwe zvikoro zviripo zvisina kana mvura iri kumanya mumatenfomu. Kuchaitwa sei because tiri kuona kuti COVID kana takaitarisa kuti iri kuda chikoro chitori nemvura iri kutoshandisiwa nemazvo but zvikoro hazvina mvura. Saka vana vachaita sei pakugeza maoko apa. Ndiko kutarisa kuti zvikoro hazvitombokwanisi kana kutotenga sanitizer zvayo. Saka maybe kakwanisa kutenga kuti tishandise mvura iyo iripo kuzvikoro but zvikoro zvakawanda hazvina mvura hapana kana. Saka kuvhura kwezvikoro handifuni kuti.
Saka imi muchaita sei? Muchaita sei tichiona kuti muri varairidzi vanorairidza kuzvikoro zvekumamisha? Muchaita sei manje?
Iye zvino patakagara kudai hatitorina kana kuti tiri mukaita sei because pekutanga hatitorina kana chekuti tiende kuchikoro. Saka chinongoripo ndechekuti varairidzi vakagara pasi kusvikira hurumende yataurirana nevarairidzi yovapa mari inofanira kuti vaende vanosvika kuchikoro. Izvozvo hakuna, hatisi kuchemera zvinhu zvakawanda. Tiri kuchemera kuti hurumende ichidzosere pa$540 yataitambira muna 2018 iyaiya. Hatisi kuda kuti tiwedzere pa$540 iyaiya. Aiwa, ndiyo yatiri kungochemera chete. Ikangoisiwa maakaunti medu isoti tiri kuita sei tiri kuvhura zvikoro vogadzirisa nekuti vanotigadzira kuti tione kuti hatisi kutapukirana nekuzadzana COVID-19 zvikoro zvinovhura but iye zvinofana chero kuti hurumende itikonsalte nesu kuti tiri kuona sei pakuvhura kwezvikoro aimasangotaura nesu but yakangoita sei yakangotiudza kuti zvakuvhura zvikoro kusina zvagadzirisa pakati kwevapurairidzi nehurumende.
Apa muri
zvakawanda zvichiri kudii.
Muzvare Ndlovu, apa muri kupi uyezve vari munharaunda yenyu iyoyo vari kuti chii pamusoro penyaya iyi?
Pandiri manharaunda yandiri tisiri matauriro zvisingatauri parairi kutotaura vabereki vari kutochema kuti hapana pekutangira vatongozi kuti vatangire kupi because havava vasina kutombogadzirisa. Kana chitarisa kana timu yakatomira zvakanaka une uchiziva kuti zvikoro zviri kuvhura musi wani zviri kuvhara musi wani ugona kugadzirisa zvinhu zvakanaka. Apa tatitori palockdown tisina kana kumboudziwa mazuva ekuita sei ekuvhura kwezvikoro. Vabereki vavasina kuvambogadzira vaatozvinatoti zvikoro chatovhura muna September kana October kana rini because malockdown angatiramba timbowedzerwa mazuva. Saka iye zvino vangozivawo avatongotozivi kuti vatangire pasi kuti vatsvake mari dzevana kuti vadzokere kuchikoro.
Aiwa, ndina mukoma Chris vari pano, amushuwa vada kubvunza neendebele kuti kwakamira sei kwamuri ikoko. Chris, go ahead.
Njani Mandlovu?
Uyaphila linjani lana?
Siyaphila. Ungaphi kweZimbabwe?
Mina ngikhuluma ngisemathebeleni under Ibubi district.
Oh, Ibubi. Okay. Unjani kodwa umumo we-COVID kona ngapha?
Hayi umumo we-COVID vele ngapha okunye ukuthi ama-statistics akhulele phandle but abantu kuyabahamba kunjalo umkhuhlane nje omemetheka singalanzelelwa kakhulu ukuthi uyamemetheka ngoba lapha sikhuluma ngendawo esemaphandleni.
Okay.
Ungakwanisa ukufinyelela ezibhedlela ukuthi kuze kubanjwe ukuthi umuntu unjani umkhuhlane kodwa nabe selibona ukuthi hayi umuntu kunjani usekhulelwe yiflu esimbamba amalanga amaningi.
Manje zivulwa izikolo i-COVID yona ikhona libona ngani izamemetheka kakhulu na ngenxa yokuthi izikolo sezivuliwe.
Kakhulu ngoba lapha sikhuluma ngabantu abazasuka besuka endaweni ezitshiyeneyo. Kunje sivulwa izikolo azange sizwe kukhulunywa ngokuthi ababalisi labantwana besikolo kumele bathestwe ukuthi babonakale ukuthi abala COVID. Yebo abanye bamhlabile abanye abahlaba kodwa ukuthi akula okwazi ukuthi omunye lomunye isimo sakhe sinjani sisuka endaweni ezithile. Kuma kunje kulabanye abantwana abangaphatheka kwani abaphandle kwelizwe ngokuza ukuvula kwesikolo bazakuya nabazabuye bethele ini abanye bazabuye bethele i-COVID sizahlangana.
Unfortunately, as I said, yeah, her line
is quite bad.
Yeah, is bad, but at least she was able, because she's actually in deep rural Matabeleland, and then she was saying that you know, where she is, it's not only her and other rural teachers, but it's also the parents who are, you know, really having a hard time to think what are they going to do on Monday. So I'll keep trying her. We can go ahead with our guest who's online.
Yes. Yeah, Mnumzana Ndlovu, njengoba uzwile lapho mama uyakhuluma ukuthi akungani kule nhlupheko le ndubo eziningi kungavulwa izikolo. How is South Africa handling the situation when people go to back to school? I saw some school where kids were lining outside, and as they get into the class, they are forced to wash their hands and so forth. What other measures do you think Zimbabwe can adopt from there?
I think those measures of ensuring that hygiene levels are kept high, and also rotating kids, which is what is done here in South Africa, is the biggest intervention actually. So kids don't go; the whole school does not go to school at the same time. You have your kid being told that that day is Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, for example, so that there is no, to avoid crowding. To just avoid crowding. And then those thorough, interventions of ensuring that kids wash their hands, that they wear their masks, they also, make sure that they are not all over the place. There is distancing there, even inside the cars. There is no haphazard interaction. They sanitize. So if those measures are put in place, you cannot totally eradicate the possibility of infections, but they are reduced to a large extent. And I hear the Miss Ndlovu who spoke a few minutes ago, and you can feel that they've really been thrown into a difficult situation. And theirs is no longer just about COVID. As I said, even earlier, is now clouded by issues of money, teachers needing to go to school and things like that. So they're in a more difficult situation.
Yeah, joining us now is another guest, Mr. Difa Wajabi Pango. Mnumzana sakwamukela kuhlelo.
Ngiyabonga babukani.
Yes, iphethe lapha indaba yezikolo. Ungasitshela ukuthi khona ngapho kwele Bhilitane nxa abantwana kuthiwe baye esikolo ngesikhathi lesi ese COVID-19. Ngamanyathelo banathathwayo njalo ngamanyathelo anjani angafundwa yiZimbabwe?
Lapha eBrithani babukande into kade beyigqugquzela kakhulu ngiyokuthi abantwana nxa behamba esikolo ukuthi bekade ngikubona kakhulu ukuthi ababalisi nxa umntwana engena eklasini balama sanitizers aspraywayo babesithi you are more effective umntwana mayengena noma nxa ephuma kulama sanitizers asprayayo njalo kade bezama ukuavoida ukuthi ama teachers bengalokho betshintshanisa ama teachers kakhulu bekungenye into ukwenzela ukuthi ukuavoida njalo ukuthi kungabi lokuthelelana okumkhuhlane kakhulu kodwa ke kakhulu ihygiene ngibona ngathi ilevel of hygiene yana sasifunde esikolo ukuthi ufanele abantu bageze izandla ukuthi abantu bazigcine behlanzekile sonke isikhathi kodwa-ke kakhulu kusebenzisa ama-sanitizers kuyinto eqakathekileyo kakhulu ngoba abantwana ama-masks ungabatshela ukuthi bantwana fakani ama-mask but kwesinye isikhathi sase sibona abanye abantwana uthola ukuthi umntwana usethethe imaski wayitshintshana lomunye umntwana benikana omunye ukuthi ngicela ukuze yakho imaski ukuthi injani eyakho iphefumula njani. Abantwana they don't take that into consideration ukuthi babekwazi ukuthi kuyabe kuyingozi ngoba ukuthi sebengathelelana imikhuhlane begcina bethatha umkhuhlane beyohambisa ebazalini. So ngibona ngathi indlela issue yama-sanitizers kufanele kube yinto esemqoka kakhulu ukuthi babe liqiniso ukuthi abantwana nxa bengena eklasini bayasanitizer njalo babakhumbuze ukuthi nxa bekhona besenelisa ukufaka ama-mask abafake ama-mask kodwa-ke abangawatshintshani njalo ama-mask. Kuqakathekile lokhuyana ngoba umkhuhlane lo is a airborne disease ukuthi uyaphefumula, unganika omunye imask yakho omunye ugcina njalo esethatha umkhuhlane wakho through ukuphefumulela laphana kumask yakho. Yilo hlupho olunye kade lukhona ebekade sikhangelane lalo.
Manje ngokubona kwakho inyathelo leli lithethwe yiZimbabwe ukuthi kuthiwe abantwana bavule ngomvulo, linyathelo olibona lilungile na?
Kusasenzima kakhulu babugande ukuthi abantwana bavule izikolo. Yes, siyazi ukuthi abantwana sebehlalele isikhathi eside kakhulu, especially abanye abasema-reserve ukuthi abala access yento zemfundo ngoba abafana labasemadorobheni ukuthi banga-access ama-computers land. Kodwa-ke uhlupho lwakhona lapho lukhona ukuthi indlela i-COVID isimo sayo lokho sasephezulu, lokho kusase lama-transmissions amaningi okungangokuthi yilokho kwenza ukuthi kube a bit difficult ukuthi umkhuhlane lo uqhubekele phambili ulokho usenza uqhubekele phambili lokho sidla ubhedu wayelisa abantwana besesikolo okuza kwenza ukuthi ispread sakhona sibe nzima kakhulu njalo ekhaya okulabantu abadala kakhulu abagcina bethatha umkhuhlane wana besanikeza abadala kugcina sekusiba lohlupho olukhulu. Ngibona ngathi elizweni lakithi leZimbabwe kulomehluko omkhulu kakhulu ngoba izinto eziningi impilo ephile ema-reserve lempilo ephile emadorobheni kuyizinto ezimbili ezihlukeneyo. Kodwa kwezinye indawo uthola ukuthi noma ungaze kuthiwa kulama-reserve lasemadorobheni impilo ifanana. Kodwa-ke ngibona ngathi kithi kuyadingakala i-precaution kakhulu, ama-precautions anidakala kakhulu ukuthi abantwana bakhunjuzwe sonke isikhathi kube yinto abayitshelwa nearly every day ukuze ukuthi kuze kusinke kuhle.
Okay, thank you so much. Marvelous.
Christiana Muzvare Ndlovu zvakare veAmalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe. Muzvare Ndlovu, nyatsotitsanangurai kuti muri kupi pari zvino nokuti vanhu vanyatsonzwisisa zvamakatarisana nazvo sevarayiridzi vekumaruwa. Kuti muri kupi pari zvino kuti vanhu vanyatsonzwisisa kwamuri sevarayiridzi vekumaruwa.
Okay, inini zvino ndiri based kumatereni ekuhuviti zvama vanoziva kuti inyati kwandinowanikwa ikoko.
Saka kwakamira sei panyaya yeCovid iyoyi?
Inyati kuhuvi district apa patiri kutarisa ndezvekuti inzvimbo inoita nezvemining zvakawanda. Saka ratinaro ratakatarisira nenguva dzino dzeCovid nelockdown yanga iripo toda kuti vana vedu vachatoda kuvhura apa havasisoka neuwandu hwavo. Why? Because vakawanda vacho pasina zvavari kuita, havasiri pachikoro, vakaenda vakanopinda mumaini ava vakanotanga kutsvaka food. So ndo dambudziko one ratakatarisira ipapo enyaya yeCovid lockdown. So nyaya iriko ndeyekuti vana vasikana vakawanda zvokuona kuti kura vasikana vakawanda vakazvitakura zvinotarisira kubva kugrade 5 grade 6 vana vadiki kusvika form 4 havasi kudzoka bheki because panyaya.
Aiwa, laini renyu riri kumboenda richikata, asi zvandiri kunzwa ndezvekuti muri kuti vana vasikana vechidiki vakawanda vakazvitakura nekuti vanga vari kuwanikwa vachienda kumamaini ari munzvimbo iyoyo. Ko imi sematicha ekumaruva muchakwanisa here kudzokera nemusi wemande iwoyu? Zvimwe zvikwanisiro zvamungati mungada kuti mudzokere kunoticha uku?
Kuchikoro hatikwanisa ukuthi ivarayiriti mari dzekudzokeresa ndodzatisena ndochokwadi chiripo hatitorina kana
aiwa nekuti laini yenyu kuti rakakanganisika ko vanenge vachida kukubatsirai sevarairidzi vekumamisha vanokuwanai kupi?
matiti arisora ndinakunzwa
vanenge vachida kubatsira sangano renyu kana vamwewo varairidzi vekumamisha vanokuwanai papi?
okay isusu ofisi yedu yazvino yerural teachers amacommitted of rural zimbabwe iri kuwanikwa maofisi ichiri ofisi itsva iri mutown but iri mutown kudaro takangopiwawo chikonawo nevebulawayo residence association saka iri kuhauza masouth bulawayo nematinot but kana vachida kunditsvazondiriniwa akato mukuru wematinoti ndine namba dzana dzokushandisa idzodzo dzekuti 0718 062729 vakandibata ipapo vanondiwana.
Taurai zvakare nhamba dzenyu.
0718 062729.
Aiwa, mukoma Chris vari panapa ndizoti vane mubvunzo here tisati tati muende zvenyu nekuti foni yenyu iri kuti netsei. Chris.
Mama ungasitshela manje ukuthi lina njengenhlanganiso kuyini kahle kahle elikutshele uhulumende njalo libona ngani uzalalela yini izikhalazo zenu kakhulu izikolo njengoba sezivulwa?
Ina njengenhlanganiso sokutshela uhulumende ukuthi thina ukuvula bathi kunje singabazali sisizo sokuthi abantwana babuyele esikolo. Akuzwisi ukuthi imali esiyiholayo ayiyenelisi ukuthi siphile vele incane. So sicela ukuthi asizwisise, asazi njalo nxa engasizwisisa, but thina kunje njengoba sifake ilanga lokuvula asoze sikwanise ukuthi sibuyele ngaphi esikolo ngoba asilamali yokuthi sibuyele, asilamali yokuthi sibuyele futhi abantwana bethu esikolo. Yikho esikuthi sesifiso sokuthi uhulumende ngathi uyasiza ukukhala kwethu kube yinto abayilungisayo ngokuphuthuma. Ifika ngomhla ka-30 abantwana bangakwanisa ukuhamba bodwa esikolo. Kucine sokuyinokhana okwenzakala unyaka odlule abantwana sebesenza ukuganga kungela muntu obakhangele esikolo ngoba ababalisi abasoze bayenelise ukubuyela esikolo ngoba balaphe ukuthi bangabuyela njani.
Hayi kuyezwakala, isibongile kakhulu.
Hayi nami ngibonge kakhulu.
Thank you so much. We were hearing there from Miss Ndlovu, who is actually deep in rural Matebeleland, and she was just saying that just to even get to the schools for the rural teachers, it's going to be a challenge, Chris.
Yes, marvelous. We still have our guest, Mr. Difa Wachapi Bango. Mr. Bango, please can you stay on the line? We want to show a brief video here from Bulawayo from our reporter Ezra Chisa Smanda. He sent us this video, and let's see what the parents are saying, because some of the parents are very unhappy about the schools reopening.
Yes, Abdul. Uzwile ukuthi izikole ziyavula. Labantwana.
Nabantwana.
Bangaki?
Primary nde 5, secondary nde 1.
Walaba labantu abakasiswa kwabayi.
1 ngokamama, 1 ngowami, 3 ngabakasisi.
Ngoba
secondary ngakasisi.
Ngoba khangela bonke lawa.
Hayi mina losisi siyancedisana.
So izikolo zivula nje uthini ngakho wena ubona ngathi isikhathi ezivula izikolo ngesikhathi secorona konje?
Kade kungaba njani ukuthi izikolo zivula ngoJanuary ngoba ukuvula kwezikolo manje athesa kulanto abazabayazi abantwana ngoba next year vele kuyabe bebuyela still. ECD laba obvious vele bazabuyela ngoba kulanto abayaziyo. Njengamanje vele isikhathi sesihambile akulanto abayazifundileyo. Uform 1 nalo ngenileyo secondary akulanto ayaziyo. Still vele uzabuyela futhi form 1 ngoba ngaze abhale still angaze ayenzeni but akulanto ayifundile because umnyaka suphelile izikolo zingavulwa. So bongaba njani nje i-lockdown le ingareducanga isikhathi se-lockdown asireducanga phela ukuthi sithi i-lockdown yangikhona abantu sokungcono ukufa kwabantu. Bongaba njani izikolo zivule ka-1 ngoJanuwari ukwenzela ukuthi abantwana bekwazi
ukuthi babamba. So isifiso sakho ufisa ukuthi izikolo zivulwe ngoJanuwari. Lithini njengabazali lini?
Hayi nabe sisade sisifisa lesicede silazi ngoba athi singaze zivule still izikolo mbhadala ischool fees but next year vile still abantwana phela nyababisela ku-grade 1 because akulanto abayaziyo and form 1 yambisela ku-form 1 angeke ngithi aye ku-form 2 kuyina bekwazi
akulanto abayifundileyo
umnyaka vele azangafundi umnyaka sophelile. So kade singaze zivulwa njengamanje athe sekungu-September bafunda ama-main days izikolo sezivaliwe sokungu-January next year sokuyabe kuvuma ukuthi aye ku-form 2 yena engafundanga lutho.
Into ebuhlungu ukuthi lithiwa libhadala i-school fees.
Into esizwe ukuthi ukuthi sibhadala i-school fees umntwana engafundanga ngikho sithi bokungaba njani ukuthi siqale ukubhadala next year sengathi January umntwana wesikolo until December mbhadala i-school fees esikwandile kade singaze mbhadala i-school fees still kuyafana because umntwana nami ngafundanga lutho kodwa ukuthi mbhadala i-school fees. Weso wami bafunda emakhaya kabakho edorobheni uthi okungcono bebefunda ama-online this and that emakhaya akukho lokho anila ama-online asilawo ama-teachers laba abafundisa emakhaya asilawo lapha bedorobheni bangcono ngoba bebefunda ama-online this and that manje ekhaya vele umntwana akazi lutho kuyenele ukuma isikolo kwahle kwama lama-teacher ezikolo ahle athiwa ahamba yiba kula teacher kulani akula lokhu ngaba bafunda ama-extra lesson this and that ekhaya akukho lokho.
Yes, thank you there to Ezra for sending us that video. It shows some parents are really not happy about the schools reopening because they are saying that there is no money. Some of them were expecting the schools to reopen as late as next year. That's a very sad situation, Marvelous.
Aiwapo tiri kunzwa kubva kune vamwe mubereki vari kutaura ivo kuti vanga vakatotarisira kuti vachazowanikwa ivo vana vachidzokera kuzvikoro gore rinouya asi pari zvino sezvo zvinhu zvakavaomera vari kuti mari chaiyo yekuti vana vadzokere kuchikoro havana. Sezvatanzwa zvakare zvitaurwa namuzvarendlovu avo vanova ivo murayiridzi vanoshanda vari pasi pevarayiridzi vanoshandira kumamisha vanga vari kutaurawo kuti ivo sevarayiridzi chokwadi havanawo mari yekudzokera asi vabereki vemunharaunda imomo vari kutotaura zvakare kuti naivowo sevabereki vari kushushikana kuti vachadzokera sei kuti vana vachadzoserwa sei kuzvikoro ikoko. Maybe if you can just give us your take on what we just saw and heard from the video that just finished playing.
Mr. Pango.
Oh, I'm not sure if you.
I think unfortunately I did not see the video. I only heard the first briefing when Ezra was still asking the lady and she was still introducing herself. But unfortunately, I did not hear. Maybe most probably, if you can narrate it a bit, then maybe I can comment on it.
The parent there was just echoing what we heard being echoed by Ms. Ndlovu of the Rural Teachers Union, saying that right now they are they don't have any finances to send the children back to school as parents. And Ms. Ndlovu was speaking as a teacher, saying that she is a teacher, but she herself doesn't even have funds also to send her own kids back to school. So that's why I was just saying, what's your take on what we're seeing happening?
Truly speaking, the issue of my teachers is something which has been going on for quite a long time, and I think our government needs to take teachers into serious consideration, especially teachers are playing a major role within our society. So our teachers, we cannot have doctors, we cannot have soldiers, we cannot have policemen without teachers. So they have to try and ensure with our teachers they also get something for them to be able to sustain impedos while they're still going, while it's doing their duties at the same time. Because whether you want to go to school, but you cannot go and teach kids while you've got an empty stomach. You cannot go and teach other kids while it's your own kids are sat at home not doing now. So that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem at the same time. So I think they need to sit down and resolve this issue amicably, because one or the other, teachers are by actually in life, because without teachers, actually, we've got no painkillers. Nothing goes, actually, whether when teacher can create one or anything. But, they have to respect teachers. They have to do something and assist teachers to ensure that they have imali for them to sustain impilo zabo. And literally what they're asking about teachers, they're not asking for imali, but they're asking for something which will be like just like any other normal people. And by so doing, our teachers in nowadays, they have lost value because of because of their becoming beggars, and they're asking for everything. Now some teachers, we've seen teachers because not they because they want to steal, but because they are facing crises. We've seen our teachers, they're becoming prostitutes. They're being prostitutes, but that extra cash to ensure they can sustain impilo zabo, including their kids. So, but ama teacher even for them when teaching kids, they need to be at the normal level. Teachers, because he or she needs to dress he needs to eat in this is a professional person. Umuntu owabhatalelwa imali eziningi ukuze ukuthi ahambe to acquire that qualification that he or she holds. But in nowadays, umuntu osebenza olusa inkomo seems to live a better life rather than a teacher. So in the teacher, to be quite honest, we are not saying ukuthi noma njani, but in reality, teachers, they need to be bafuna the normal salary edingakalayo ukwenza ukuthi baqhubekele phambili bayenze imisebenzi yabo ngendlela elungileyo ngoba badlala a major role within our society.
Thank you so much. Marvelous. We are getting closer to the end of the show, but in other breaking news, we know there is a lot happening in Afghanistan. So we have a video here on Afghanistan. Let's take a watch for a few minutes, and then we'll come and report.
Hirawi went to Afghanistan to visit her ailing father 3 months ago. The resident of the U.S. state of Tennessee, who did not want her identity revealed to protect friends and family, said she and her children had to cut their trip short and rush to Kabul airport after the Afghan government abruptly fell on Sunday. Hirawi says it took her nearly 24 hours to reach the airport through the Taliban's checkpoints and crowds of the people outside.
When we reached near to the entrance of the airport, the area was controlled by the Taliban. The Taliban would not let people pass. They were shooting and beating them. Many people got wounded. After much effort, we reached to the second gate, and after 4 hours, about 400 to 500 American troops came out. Fortunately, I was a U.S. citizen and had my passport and documents, and they let us enter the airport.
She says the crowds grew desperate outside the airport as they tried to escape the Taliban fighters who now control the capital city.
When we wanted to enter the airport, a woman lying on the ground, she was then trampled by the crowd. I tried my best to rescue her, but unfortunately, I was not able to do so. I had my daughter in my hands. I'll never forget that moment.
Sultan Alizada is another Afghan American who traveled to Kabul with his wife and 3 children to visit his mother. Alizada talks about his disturbing experience reaching Kabul airport last week to return home.
The shooting was intense, and an empty cartridge hit my younger daughter's face and burned her face and injured her lip.
He says his children are suffering from trauma and they do not want to visit Afghanistan anymore.
My older daughter, who is wiser, was saying, "I will never go to Afghanistan." And coming to Afghanistan this time was a mistake.
The U.S. has said that approximately 88,000 people have been airlifted since July from Kabul airport, where thousands of people are still stranded. Mohammed Ahmadi, VOA News, Washington.
Yes, Thank you so much. That there is a story about Afghanistan where the United States pulled off its army and led to the Taliban taking over the country, and there that was the situation being described there in that video. Yeah. Now back to our topic of schools reopening on Monday. So Mnumzana Tifa, ungasipha nje awakho ukugcina ukuthi ubona njani umumo owenzakalayo ekhaya lo ukuthi bayakhuluma abanye abazali bathi bona imfundo isizabuyela emuva ngenxa yakhona lokho, kodwa besilomunye nje umhlonitshwa umnumzana Bernard Bhekilizwe Ndlovu othi yena izikolo zavalwa okweminyaka engu-2 edlula emibili ngesikhathi sempi kodwa imfundo kayiwanga. Wena ukubona njani lo?
Mina ngesingami babugande ngiyazi sibili ukuthi we have got i-generation ikakhulukazi abantwana abangamankazana ababe kuukuthi bayakhula kwesinye isikhathi ukukhula kwabo lokhuyana kuyabe kusenza ukuthi bagcine ekugcineni abanye bathola sebekhulelwe bengasaqhubi imfundo yabo ngendlela efaneleyo. But what I would suggest ukuthi mina ebekade ngikukhangelele kathesi we are towards the end of the year. Abantwana since the beginning of the year abantwana akulanto abake bayifunda due to ama-strikes kade ikhona due to i-crisis ye-COVID kade ikhona. Mina ebekade ngibona ngathi bekungabe ngcono ngokuthi abantwana ngabe uthi abaqalise izikolo ngoJanuary baqalise kuhle, everyone prepared, lama-teachers eku-same level, ama-agreements yonke into isi-ayune out, lama-COVID ama-COVID outbreaks abe kuthi lawo they will be down at that particular time. So mina ebekade ngikukhangelele to be quite honest bengikhangela ukuthi abantwana izikolo zingavulwa ngoJanuary, because we have seen it as isikhulumile sesinye esijilo ukuthi previously isikhathi sempi izikolo they were closed for quite a long time, but zaqala phansi because everyone was prepared ukuthi aqalise ku-same page, aqalise in a proper way. But bayenelisa ukuthi even after impi izikolo zavulwa abantu be-prepared bavula kwaqhutshekela phambili and everything was normal. So kathesi abantwana bazahamba bayabuyela esikolo, imali yabazali ababe beyiluza ama-fees abayibhatalelayo esikolo, accommodation abayibhatalela esikolo, ikudla abantwana bakubhatalela ukuthi abantwana bayekudla esikolo, but imali le it just goes down the drain because these kids akulanto abazayihlomula esikolo. There is absolutely nothing because they did not learn nothing. So into ekhona bekungcono ukuthi ngabe uthi akuqaliswe nje ngoJanuary so that they start everything ku-same page, baqhubeke nje ngayo yonke into ngendlela eqondileyo. Lokho kakathesi ngibona ngathi nje into engasoze ihambe kuhle because through ama-disagreements la akhona through ugovernment laba balisi still that's gonna drag down enye futhi enye lokuzeni enye epinomi again. Then from there still kuyafanana abantwana bazavele kubehlele esikolo ukubonakala kwezinto kusiba even worse. So ngibone ngathi bekufanele ukuthi ngabe ugovernment wayihlolisisa lento, wayibonisisa ukuthi ngabe kungcono ukuthi abantwana baqalise isikolo ngoJanuary, bonke abantu bezilungiselele ngakho konke okufanele ukuthi kube ukuthi bazilungiselele ngakho. Njalo lama-COVID cases ngaleso sikhathi ngithemba ukuthi abe low kakhulu ngendlela esibona i-vaccination lokhu iqhubekela phambili ukuthi abantu they are getting vaccinated more and more. So most probably ngaleso sikhathi izinto ziyabe sezi-down and kuyabe sekungcono for everyone ukuthi abuyele esikolweni, abuyele back to normal lifestyle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tifa Wajapi Bango, for joining us. Like I said, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Marvelous, you'd like to wrap up?
Yes, just to mention maybe on the video that we just saw of what's happening in Afghanistan, I actually had the pleasure to speak to a Zimbabwean who worked in Afghanistan with 80 other Zimbabweans, and they were able to be repatriated or evacuated out of Afghanistan in June. So, he said because of the situation in the country, they were working for a company that worked for the United States government. They were informed that the contracts were no longer going to be renewed. His name is Nyasha Majese. He was able to give us an exclusive interview to just tell us about the situation in Kabul in Afghanistan, but he's back home in Zimbabwe with 80 other Zimbabweans.
Okay. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, like I said, we have run out of time, and hope we meet again soon. My name is Chris Gande, but before we go,
Maybe let's also thank our guests who were here with us. There was Miss Ndlovu.
There's Marvelous. There's
Ngabe kungayisiko lokho, I was going to comment as well about Afghanistan because it's a place that I know, it's a place that I've been there before. So I think that you have seen my clip on SABC previously. I was commenting about issue of Afghanistan. Which the only way to maybe discuss as say, so anyway, I'll comment next time.
Maybe next time, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. I didn't know. It's just that I wanted to bring the Zimbabwean angle. So it's very interesting that you've been there. So we'll touch base with you, but would like to thank you for being our guest this evening, and Miss Ndlovu of the Amalgamated Bureau Teachers Union of Zimbabwe.
Yes, and we also had Mr. Ndlovu, another Mr. Ndlovu, who is Mr. Bernard Begilizwe Ndlovu. It was Ndlovu affair today. Thank you so much for joining us. Until we meet same time next week, my name is Chris Kande. Good night, Zimbabwe.
And I'm Marvelous Mflanganyahuye, broadcasting from my home in Washington, D.C. Have a very great weekend.
Thank you.